Hi, I'm Chesney from Wayne Public Library, and today I will be instructing you on how to make a couple apple-themed desserts just using a microwave. Along with these videos and instructions, recipe cards will be posted to our website. All you have to do is look under the event page and click our microwave apple recipe tabs to find the hard copy. As we go over each recipe in this video, I will be listing the specific ingredients needed. So for our first recipe, we are going to be making a apple spice cake in the microwave. So I've already cut up and I took one apple, removed the skin and core, and diced it up real tiny. Doesn't need to be perfect, just get them a little smaller so they'll cook easier. And then take a microwave safe mug and put the apple in there. And then we can do any extra cleanup we need to as we go. And then we are going to be adding just a little sprinkle of ground cinnamon. Mix that up just a little bit, and then we are going to put it in the microwave for 1 minute. Before our apples are finished, I would like to make a quick note about the apples that I am using in this video. I'm using Fuji apples and Honeycrisp apples because those are my personal favorite, but there are many types of apples that work well for baking. Some of these types include Granny Smith, Golden Delicious, Gala apples. One type of apple that is not recommended for baking purposes is Red Delicious. It's a little too soft, so you're not going to want to use one of those. The apples you choose should fit to your personal preferences of flavor and texture, so if you are unsure of what type of apples you'd like to use, I'd recommend looking up the properties of different apples online. It'll let you know kind of it's a crunchy texture, a softer texture, and how it's going to taste. Is it sweeter? Is it tart? But yeah, make sure it's an apple that is good for baking. Alright, as our 1 minute is up, we are going to once again stir it up real good, and then we're going to put it in for 1 more minute while I get the other ingredients in the recipe ready. For our other ingredients, you will need some type of ginger ale. You don't need to get a whole 2 liter. We are only using a 1/4 cup of it, and then we will also need some type of box cake mix. I recommend vanilla, or if you can find a spice cake, cinnamon cake, either works. And again, we're not going to be using the whole package, just a tiny bit of it, so you have a little bit left over for if you want to make this recipe again. And I would like to recommend that since this is your first time making it, once you do put the cake ingredients inside, you should put the mug on a plate, so if it spills over any, it's not going to ruin your microwave. And then once you know exactly how big your mug is and what works for you, the next time you don't have to worry about it. Alright. So the apples are going to start to brown a little bit, and then all we're going to do is mix in 1/4 cup of ginger ale, and then we are going to do a 1/2 cup of the cake mix. I'm just going to be using the same 1/4 cup measurement, so that'll be just do these let's set that down real quick. I'd also maybe recommend putting a paper plate down as a workspace so you don't have to clean your counters immediately after making this recipe. 1/4, and then that makes 1/2. And then you're going to want to stir it really good to incorporate the apples all the way through. Make sure you're getting any of the powder that is sticking to the sides at the very bottom of the cup. And then you can add in a little more cinnamon. And we are going to bake that for about 1 minute and 40 seconds. A minute and 40 seconds is what I prefer on my microwave. If you have a more powerful or less powerful microwave, you might need to do a little longer or a little less. If you wanted to start out with a minute and 30 seconds, that would probably be what I recommend, and then you can do the toothpick test with a toothpick or a fork and see if it comes out fairly clean to see if it is done to your liking. Besides making sure that you have a plate underneath, do make sure your mug is microwavable. We don't want any mugs to be destroyed in the filming of this video. And then once it's done, it's going to be very, very hot, so I'd wait to eat it, but once it's out, you can eat it how it is, or if you prefer some vanilla frosting on top, that would be good too. Maybe some caramel, just something that goes with the apple and cake aspect. Another thing to notice once it's done is the apples might not be distributed evenly across the whole thing. If you had a little more liquidy, they might have sunk. If it's thicker, it should have held them up better. So if you're biting into it and you're not getting any apples, check around the bottom to see if that's where they're hanging out. Alright, and that is how you make an apple spice mug cake. For our second recipe, we're going to be making an apple crumble. And first we're going to be making the granola. We're going to be using quick oats. We're going to get a 1/2 cup of the quick oats and put it on a microwave safe plate. And we are going to be adding a sprinkle of ground cinnamon, and then 1 tablespoon of olive oil. Just a splash more for the stuff that wouldn't come out of the spoon. And then we're going to be doing the same thing with the honey as we did with the cinnamon. We're just going to make sure it spreads fairly evenly. If I had to guess, this would be about a tablespoon, maybe 2. If you don't have honey, you can use maple syrup, but I highly recommend honey because I think it makes it a little, the granola stick together a little better. And then you can mix it up with a spoon. It's going to be a little messy, a little sticky, but make sure that the majority of the oats are covered. If you find that you're having trouble getting them all coated, then feel free to add a little bit more olive oil or honey as needed, but I wouldn't recommend adding a ton more. And once that's all fairly nice and coated, we are going to spread it out better onto the plate. And then we are going to microwave that for 1 minute. Well, I already went ahead and made the first part of the recipe, which is just the same thing we did last time, where we peel an apple, core it, dice it up. I did it in a bowl this time, just because I feel it's a little better for the crumble. I microwaved it for 1 minute, stirred it, microwaved it for 1 more minute, but that is dependent on, again, your the apples you're using, the texture you like. You can do it in a mug, but I found that when I tried this recipe in a mug, I actually could not get everything to fit in there, and there is quite a bit of extra granola that couldn't get mixed in as easily. And then once we pull the granola out after a minute, we're going to mix it up again, get it redistributed. It's going to be a little like mushy, like if you were making oatmeal to eat. But that's okay, it will harden up after we give it another minute in there. Another substitution that you can use for the granola, if you'd like, is instead of olive oil, I did make it with melted butter, where I melted the butter on the plate first and then mixed in the oats and the cinnamon and the honey. I found that I actually had to end up using roughly 2 tablespoons of butter when I used that, and I personally didn't like how it tasted as much. It was a little too buttery, too sweet. That's why I prefer the olive oil, but if you don't have olive oil, butter will work, just like if you don't have honey, the maple syrup will work as well. And then once we pull this one out, we're going to stir it up again, and for my microwave, I need to do an extra 30 seconds on it. But that, again, is going to depend on your microwave. It's not going to be completely solidified yet either. Make sure you are stirring it up really good, because if you get spots that are sitting, it does run the risk of burning a little bit. It's okay if it browns a little bit. It kind of has a little bit of a more like caramelized feel to it. It doesn't taste bad, but make sure you're not getting burnt oats. So do another 30 seconds. After the original 2 minutes, I recommend that if you do feel like you need to microwave it longer, you should do it in 30-second intervals and stir, and then do another 30 seconds, maybe even down to 15 once you're getting up there if you feel your microwave's taking a bit longer. Once it is done, it was still not going to have a crunchy texture. You actually have to let it sit for a minute to sort of harden up. But you will start to have the sound where it's not oatmeal on the plate. You can actually start to hear the oats with their crunchy texture. Like I said, these little brown spots don't taste bad. They're not burnt. But that's what you're going to want to get about is start to get a very golden texture with a little bit of browning in it. And I'd recommend that you let this sit for roughly a minute and then check it. And then if you still really need to do it a little longer, like I said, add a little more time on it. But you can even taste test it now. It's not going to be as crunchy, but you'll get the taste of it. And then once this hardens, we're going to just layer it on top of our apples and mix it in, and you have a nice apple crumble. Another thing I'd recommend for it is adding a scoop of vanilla ice cream on top, and that'll be real good. Alright, thank you. Alright, for our third and final recipe, we're going to do something that's a little less involved. So, like the other two, got my apple ready, and we're going to put that into a microwave safe mug. I'm going to add a little bit of ground cinnamon. Stir that up. And then microwave that for 1 minute. For this recipe, you will also need the granola that we talked about in our last recipe, the about ½ cup's worth. I went ahead and pre-made it this time, so we can let it sit and harden for a minute before we are ready to complete our recipe today. Then I'm going to go grab the only other thing you'll need for this dessert. You're going to want to get a tub or large amount, not the single cup's worth, of plain yogurt. You could get plain Greek yogurt, vanilla yogurt, even if you can find a caramel one, just something that'll go well with the apple. We're going to stir our apples and then microwave them for 1 more minute. While we're doing that, you're going to want to get a little glass bowl or cup. And we're going to create layers of yogurt, apple, and granola. Give that a little stir. And then, about a spoonful at a time, just try to create a nice, even layer over the bottom of your cup. And then once your apples are done and starting to brown, you're going to then create a layer of apples, and this should take roughly half of your apples, depending on what size you had. And the apple juices are actually going to soak in the yogurt and give that a really sweet taste. So even if you don't use a sweetened yogurt, it'll still be a pretty sweet dessert. And then to top that off, we're going to use a layer of our granola. And this yogurt you're going to want to eat pretty soon afterwards, because the longer it sits, the granola will start to get a little soft from being with the yogurt and apples. And then you're going to create, oops. Of course we have to do another counter cleanup after this recipe, but we're going to create one more layer of yogurt. And you're going to use the rest of the apples that you have left. Make sure you use a good sized bowl so we don't overflow, or don't use all the apples you have. And then add our final granola layer. Like I said, I recommend eating this pretty soon afterwards. As an optional topping, I think a little drizzle of caramel sauce, if you have it, would be really, really good with this one. And you can mix that in and it'll give you a nice caramel apple yogurt parfait. And there you have your apple granola yogurt parfait. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the recipes or see pictures of your desserts in the comments below. Take care.